So today is last lecture and it's lecture 3 on differential amplifiers. So these are the references like from beginning I am telling that the best book for BJT maybe that may be the Fundamental of Microelectronics by Behzad Razavi. And other than that, if somebody wants to go further other than BJT, if he wants to study CMOS integrated circuits or something related to MOSFET, then this is the another book which is a blue colored book, Design of Analog CMOS Integrated Circuits by Behzad Razavi. So it's a continuation of both the book. If you can read both the books, you can understand better analog electronics. And most of my slides have been taken from these two books. Okay, so just reviewing the last lecture number 1, where we started from the first lecture was there, and we understand what is the transistor and how it behaves, and we studied the BJT. We understand the different region of operations. We understand that there are mainly 4 region of operations. One is inverse, one is cutoff, one is saturation, and one is active. So majorly transistor operates on cutoff, saturation, and active mode of region, where active mode of region is the one where you are going to get the amplification. And as the name of our topic is differential amplifiers and we want to get the amplification, we have to keep our transistor in active mode of operation. And we understand all these things from different input and output characteristics. Input characteristic is the one which is IC with respect to VB, and another one is IC with respect to VC. So these are the things we studied, and we found that these characteristics are ideally giving zero slope in active mode of operation. However, when you are going to see the actual thing, or you are going to see the second order effect, there is some slope in the active mode of operation you are going to experience, and that is the voltage uh, or that is the effect coming from effect name called early effect. And if you extend that slope to negative side of the x-axis, it will give you voltage called VA, and that VA voltage will be known as early effect voltage. So these are the things we studied, and other than that we have studied that there is a two-port network which is in turn going to be used as a small signal model analysis or to find out the AC gain. So those are very important things, and we derived that using uh, Y parameter. Similarly, you can derive it using Z parameter or maybe different parameters. Some books are following H parameter. So all are equivalent, but there was one question like in the first lecture itself, that why only Y parameter, because like we are following because it looks easier to find out input and output impedance. Input and output impedance are very important uh, things, because there should not be any loading if you are connecting two circuits. So one should know that what is the quantity they are going to connect with one with another one. So what I mean to say is that if you have one circuit here, one circuit here, both are, this will have some output resistance and this will have some input resistance. So we agree that if it is voltage controlled voltage source, the input impedance has to be infinity and output impedance has to be 0. If that is the thing which is seen from your circuit, then you can declare that circuit as a VCVS, and these are playing the important roles when you are trying to connect together. So I'm using Y parameter because I can see what is the input impedance and the output impedance of any circuit, and that is easier to calculate because Y parameter is Y by V, I by V. So it's very easy to find out how much impedance or the admittance available in my circuit. So that is how, like, it's all about how you want to calculate your circuit. Otherwise, H parameter is also one of the popular or ancient technique people have followed, and most of the old books you will find H parameter. Okay, so now go to the reviewing the lecture number 2, which was the last one, where we understand what is single-ended, what is pseudo differential, fully differential, and differential configuration. So there are 4 configuration, and all 4 configuration we understand, and we understand that differential is the one where you are going to give 2 input signals. So if this is your differential circuit, or let's make it in a better way, we can make it a triangular way. In triangle, you can have 2 input signal. So one signal is V in and another signal is minus V in, or you can say that the phase difference is equal to 180 degree for the case of differential. Single-ended, of course, it has only one terminal, so you are going to give only V in or maybe minus V in. There is no difference between two plus and minus. So in effect, you are going to give 180 degree phase shift between 2 terminals, and advantage of this circuit is you are going to have the second harmonic or maybe fourth harmonic, sixth harmonics, all are getting 0, or in a better way you can write down that even harmonics goes to 0. Along with these harmonics, your common mode voltage, that is also going to 0. So whatever the noise available on top of common mode, this noise is also going to be 0, and your noise immunity is better in differential. And why we are doing all these things, the most important part is, look, when you are doing all this, the reason behind doing these things are, you want to improve signal to noise ratio. This is called SNR. So signal to noise ratio, and there is another thing called CMRR. These two things we want to make better. So this was the question from one of the college last time, and I thought I should give little bit of intro that what is signal to noise ratio. So what I mean to say for signal to noise ratio means, if you are applying only sine wave, I am only interested at plus side, not at minus side, and I am giving sine omega t as an input, but the output you are going to see like a sine omega t, that's the input. You are expecting output as some gain value times a times sine omega t. This is what you are expecting. If I draw the spectrum for a sine omega t, what I am going to see? I am going to see at omega, I am going to see value, whatever the things I am sending, right? And if it is amplified, I am expecting something like this. This is your gain or the multiplication number. So this is what we are expecting, but this is not the reality. In reality, the circuits and everything is non-linear, and this was the question long back in lecture number 1. Somebody asked that BJT is non-linear, but we are treating as linear. We are treating as linear just to simplify the whole calculation. So you are doing one like you are doing the piecewise linear, or what I mean for piecewise linear is something like this. If this is the curve, then I'm taking that much linear, then that much linear, and then connecting all, and we are going to call this one as piecewise linear. This is what we are doing. So we are not handling everything at a time. So if you handle everything at a time, it will be difficult. So if at the end, when whatever you are going to see will be like the second harmonic means you are going to see some sine wave with some value, let's call it m1, with 2 omega t, then some slope, and then 3 omega t. You are going to see 4 omega t. It's same as like let's say there is a mountain one side, and there is, you are standing here, you are shouting one name, let's say you shouted. It's a first, like when it comes back, it's called first harmonic. Maybe at the first glance you are going to hear very low volume what we you sent, like lower than what you have sent will be come to you. Then the second one, like this is first harmonic, second harmonic is exactly like the double frequency, but it will come back again because this will go and come back. It will have a lower than the first one, then third one will have a lower than second, and so on. So this is the reality. So same thing will happen in our circuit. You are not going to see only at omega, you are going to see something at 2 omega, something at 3 omega, something at 4 omega, and so on. And these are the things which we don't like. Look, I want to see only clean signal, this one, nothing else. These are the harmonics, and SN the one. So these harmonics are known as noise, and this one is known as signal. So I want to keep my signal to noise ratio as higher as possible. Okay, so my aim is, if my signal to noise ratio is as high as possible, I'll be happy, or my system will be clean, and whatever I want to design, that signal will be also cleaner. If you are, let's say you are using this amplifier in some sound system, you can see that the signal will be of better quality if the SNR is better. So one technique which we have used is differential. In differential, what we are doing, we are removing this all the even harmonics, and if we are doing that, so now these are, so now these points are 0. Similarly 6 omega, 8 omega, all are 0. So effectively the noise floor, earlier in the presence of even harmonics, let's say noise floor average value was here. Now new average value goes to down, removing even harmonics. So that's how you are going to, if this noise floor is going down, your signal to noise ratio becoming better and better. So this is one of the technique that that is used, and it's very important because we want to make your system more and more linear or more and more better, so that there is no harmonics and there is no interference from other circuits. Okay, so that is what the advantage of differential circuit over single-ended. And differential, you have basically three different categories. One is pseudo differential, one is differential, and one is fully differential. Pseudo differential is the one which has, let's call this one as a pseudo differential. Pseudo differential is the one, it's all single-ended circuit. Single-ended is the one which has one input, one output, with one VCC, one ground, or maybe minus VE. So all these circuits are pseudo, all these circuits are single-ended, but I want to make it differential, which is pseudo one. I have to put another single-ended here, same copied one, and this side it's V in plus, this side it has to be V in minus, this side it has to be V at minus, V out plus. So there is no relation between these two circuits. So these two circuits does not have any relation. They are not interfering. But when you are giving the input, one input is V in, one input is minus V in. That's how it becomes 180-degree phase shift. This is one thing. That's how it's removing even harmonics, and that's how it removing common mode noise. and that's how there is some ripple available in VCC, that is also going to be removed, because here it's same common mode value which is coming here, and that can be removed. So this is what is done in pseudo differential. However, if you want to make a circuit which is differential, you have to make sure that both the circuits are connected through one current mirror or the current circuit. I named everywhere IE, so I am keeping here IE. So what is the role of IE is, it makes sure that the transistor or the input transistor there will be some input transistor and there must be some load. So both the transistor has to be in active mode of region, that is being taken care by common mode input voltage, and this input common mode voltage, as this is varying, then my transistors Q1 and Q2 should not give different currents, like IC1 and IC2 both has to be uh, like independent of VCMI. Once my transistors are in active mode of operation, once Q1 and Q2 both are in active, there has to be some constant current flowing through IC1 and IC2, or those are the current which has to be process voltage and temperature independent. This is what I am expecting. And how can I make sure that if it is a pseudo differential, of course there was a problem, you cannot do that. So in differential we have added one current at the down, and that current makes sure that when both the transistors are in saturation, both the transistors are in active, the current flowing through this IC Q1 and Q2, if both are IC1 and IC2, they are not depending on common mode voltage, but they are depending on this one. If VCMI, and we took some example that, and this was one of the question by one of the college, that if both the VCMI are not equal, so let's assume that for this 2.5 volt and this one is plus 2 volt and this one has some plus 0.5 volt, it's not 0.5 will not be enough maybe, so let's make this one as 1 volt. So this side plus 1 volt, this side plus 2 volt, this side plus 2.5 volt, means IC1 carries the all current, and IC2, as IC1 have eaten up all the current, so IC2 cannot take or cannot provide any current, because it has to be 0, because the total of these two current has to be equal to IE, and that's how KCL is being followed. So this is what we are expecting in our case, and that's how these current ratios and all these things are not depending on process voltage or temperature, because this current which is here, it's provided by current mirror, and current mirror circuit is the one which is process voltage and temperature independent. So this is not part of our course, where we are only teaching differential amplifier, not current mirror. So maybe extension of this can be given to current mirror, the same topic. So if it is coming from current mirror and they are PVT independent, and that is the case, then this IC1 and IC2 are depending only on the tail current, which is IE. This is what we found out, that pseudo differential amplifier is a better, and differential amplifier is the one which has two inputs, and I am taking output from either of sorry, not from there. So either of the side. So either you can take output from this point or maybe this point. You have to choose only one. If you are taking the output from only one point, then it's called differential amplifier. But if you are taking the output from 2 points and taking the subtracting quantities, then it's called fully differential. So these are the difference between different topologies of single-ended, pseudo differential, differential, and fully differential. And we understand why we are doing differential, because you want to remove, you have to make better SNR, or you have to even harmonics, or you can say you wanted to remove the common mode noise coming from DC source, which is AC to DC converter, maybe rectifiers. So those has to be removed. And uh, for that, we try to find out the small signal differential AC gain analysis, and we found out that the gain coming from our circuit was minus GM times RC for this circuit. And one more important thing we have learned for this one, if this is the case, and we learn that if we are applying this one is plus minus, this one is minus plus, it becomes 180-degree phase shift. If you are doing this, there will be delta difference, and that delta difference will give you this point as a 0, or it will be virtual AC ground. That's not the case when you are applying common mode together. So I'm talking about only case when inputs are differential or they are 180-degree phase shift. Otherwise, this is not the case, because otherwise there will be case when IE will be active and you will have current will be double. That is what you are going to see here, but you cannot predict for voltage. Voltage will be the voltage drop. So if you want to find out if I'm applying common mode voltage over here and there is no AC signal, then the voltage at point VP will be equal to the impedance or the resistance of the current IE times the current, which is IE. So that will be the current available at this point if you are applying the common mode voltage. And we found out that the small signal AC gain, so small signal AC gain, we found out from the analysis. First of all, we found out from the analysis, we have not used AC model, but we are going to use the model now today onwards. So last time I am supposed to teach that, but I could not cover it last. But anyway, so I'll try to cover it in a better way today itself. And this model, we have to understand that this is small signal AC model or small signal AC analysis. In that analysis, we have to make sure that all the DC sources are equal to AC ground, because I am doing the ground. So wherever you are seeing something DC source, you have to replace that with AC ground. You have to make sure that that is what we are going to use. And the gain of any circuit becomes minus GM times R out. R out, I'm writing R out means the output resistance of that circuit. You have to put it here. That's it. Then your gain is available. You no need to go to the hand calculation where it's associated all the current and voltage, and there are so many things. And this also needs actually hand calculation, but you have to follow Thevenin theorem. So through Thevenin equivalent circuit, you can find out how much Thevenin equivalent resistance you are seeing through the circuit, and that circuit will give you the gain. So this is what we want to. You have to understand that it's minus GM times R out. Now let's go to the next part. Okay, so still like some of the things I thought I should show you how this single-ended and differential is giving you an advantage. So let's assume that you have the clock. Clock is coming from one through some inverter or and there is a line. So there is a line which is giving you square wave, and there is another line which has sine wave. Now when I am going to see the output, this is my output. At my output I am going to see that both are AC signal, both are having frequency. This has frequency, this has frequency, both are frequency signal. And you have to understand one thing: whenever there is a frequency signal, whenever there are two plates, so here two plates, two frequencies, they are going to talk to each other. Means this signal and this signal will talk to each other through some, I'm drawing with blue color capacitors. So these blue color capacitors, you have not made it, I have not made it, but it has been created by the physics that both have frequency, because capacitor is the one where it's blocking DC but it allows AC. So these are the frequency signal which are AC signals and they are not DC, so they can talk to one side to another side because there are two plates. Two plates are creating capacitors. These were unwanted. So keep these things in your mind that these are unwanted and these were like parasitics to my circuit. So let's name them as parasitic capacitances, and they are going to disturbing us. So same thing I have drawn or I have taken from the book, where there are two signals are coming, and because of this capacitive, they are line to line capacitance. These are the parasitics, and because of that I was expecting here sine wave, but on top of sine wave there is something like looks like going up and down. These are coming from this triangular wave, these square wave. So this was one problem when you are doing the single-ended, and single-ended is picking up the noise. Now I'm doing something else. Rather than doing this, let's put one more circuit this side. So although they are disturbing each other, but they are disturbing in same polarity. Just look at this. These are disturbing this signal or these signals in a same polarity wise. And if you are taking the differential output, then differentially you are going to see the clean sine wave. There will not be any problem. So differential, if you are taking something differential, when I'm saying differential means the difference of two quantities, then it's going to be there is clean signal, and there is even harmonic will be 0 and those things will be remain there because this is 180-degree phase shift. Just look at this. So you people must be knowing this is, so whatever we are, okay, so I should say that whatever we are studying, we don't have control over. So these kind of problem can be, if these are the problems available in your laboratory or somewhere, then this can be solved by some different way. What I am talking about, it's a chip. Maybe this circuit is inside chip, or maybe this circuit is the one where metal line is not wrapped with something which is called coaxial. So these two lines are not coaxial. When I'm saying coaxial, this is the very popular solution or the ancient solution that people have used till now. That solution is, you put something, wrap something on top of your line, and outside that complete line has to be grounded. Then even if they will talk with capacitor, it's with respect to ground, so it will not interfere. Or same for this one, but this solution is not available to us because we are limited to that. Let's say we don't have coaxial cables available, or you are only talking about something which you are making on breadboard, and on breadboard there was a one line which is like, let's say this is horizontal and these are the vertical. This vertical has, this has clock and this has your sine wave. So definitely they will talk to each other if you are keeping near and near, or you are not making the clean circuit. So this is the thing you have to make sure. And the solution which I was showing was, maybe you have seen same thing in BNC cables. In BNC cables, what is happening? There is a signal inside, and outside of this one, the whole entire BNC cable, you will have the ground part, or this ground will be connected to the chassis of your oscilloscope, chassis of your function generator, or all the instruments, and that's how your output is stable. If your ground of chassis are not stable, then you are not going to see the stable thing, and all those things were single-ended. And if you want to solve it through differential, these may be the technique, or there are many others, but this is one of them. So we have started that if you are doing the differential or keeping two signals, and if there is some noise coming from VDD is the one which is for MOSFET. So you can replace these MOSFETs with BJT, it's a similar thing. And at output, you are going to see signal, and that signal is getting corrupted by this ripples, or not the desired one. But if you take the Vx minus Vy, you are going to see the clean signal. So this is the main thing. And as your circuit is becoming better and better in terms of rejecting the power supply, this is called PSRR, or it's called power supply rejection ratio. Similarly, sometimes your ground is going to give you so much of noise, but still that noise is coming here, and that's what you are rejecting by the difference of output, and that is called ground supply rejection ratio. So power supply rejection ratio and GSRR, ground supply rejection ratio, both are very good in differential circuit. That is also one key point of differential amplifier. Now this is also another technique, that if you want to improve, let's have the non-overlapping clocks, means one side its clock is 0 to 1 and another side it's 1 to 0, and from in between there is a line is going. And if you are doing this, it's make sure that there is a, although there is a coupling of capacitors, or there are so many parasitic capacitors, they are going to remove my remove the noise coming from those clock signals, and at the output of my amplifier, single ended amplifier, I'm going to see the clean signal, because my clocks are differential, and whatever I'm giving at the clock, you can see it's 0 to 1, or maybe it's something like 2.5 volt to 0, and 0 to 2.5 and 2.5 to 0. So it's complete minus IE to plus VCC, and it's a saturated signal. So these kind of signals we are going to call it large signal, and you are applying large signal clock, and because of that you are going to see the clean sine wave. Now our, so all those things were the previous thing which we have actually studied, and it was a like small summary of that, because I thought people had many doubts, and I thought I believe that because of now small discussion, there should not be now much doubt on previous two lectures. So today's agendas are like maybe I'll give you a little bit flavor of what is Bode plot and phase and magnitude plot, and from after learning that, there is very important theorem which is actually very important to understand what is a frequency response, or there is something called poles and zeros associated with the BJT or with the transistor, that can be understand from Miller theorem, or that will be useful. That's actually tool to solve poles and zeros, and we are going to learn high frequency analysis for common emitter. So if it is possible, we can do this. Otherwise, I will try to understand all the basic understanding of common emitter amplifier. Let's see how much I can cover today. So this is one circuit. So let's go back to our main analysis, where we have started from this one. common emitter with current at the bottom. V in plus, V in minus. V in plus, V in minus, it means there are 180 degree phase shift. So this is plus V in and this is minus V in, and this is RC, this is RC, this is Q. Let's say if this is Q1, this is Q1, and we are assuming that this block and this block both are identical. There are no change. Means RC is equal to RC, Q1 is equal to Q1. There is no difference. There is no even small difference. If that is the case, then I can say that this is fully differential. This is complete differential circuit, and whose inputs are V in plus equal to V in and V in minus is equal to minus V in. This is what I am giving, and I assume that both the transistors inputs are such that the input common mode voltage is sufficient Q1 in Q1 in transistor action, or you can call it it's in active mode of operation. So this makes sure that it's in active. So I'm not drawing it, but it's available on the back. So I'm not drawing it because we are only doing AC analysis. So this was the thing, and when I want to do the analysis, I know that this point, this blue colored point, is 0. It's 0 because I'm applying differential input, and this point we are going to call it virtual ground, virtual or virtual AC ground. If you call it AC, virtual AC ground, it will be good for you because you always remember that it's a AC signal. It's not a DC when it's becoming ground. So if you apply input common mode voltage, and in the presence of only input common mode voltage, this is not going to be 0. Other than that, if I want to do the small signal AC analysis, I should make sure that my all DC sources equal to 0 volt of AC plus some DC voltage. But I am not doing DC, I am only doing AC. So DC has to be removed, or you can say that all the DC sources will be equal to, again they are AC ground. DC source is equal to AC ground. Okay, so if we have all these informations and we want to, okay, so if that is the case, what you can do, you are going to keep this voltage, this DC, as a ground, and the BJT is equal to this one. We have derived this one. Right, this is base, this is emitter, this is collector. Now we learn this one, but on top of it we also learn that there is a early effect voltage. So early effect voltage is going to give you the collector current is equal to Is exponential Vb by Vt. So this was the older equation without early effect, but if there is early effect, it is with pink. So 1 plus Vc by Va. And we understand that this characteristic has a impedance of 1 by R0, slope of 1 by R0, and effective resistance seen at the VCE node with respect to current, it has to be one more resistance which is called RO. This RO is the one which is because of the early effect. So this can be solved by del VC, del IC by del VC, sorry. So that was the one term which we have not included in the previous analysis in Y parameter, because at that time there was no control of collector current because of VC, but by adding the early effect voltage, there has to be new term should be coming, which is called R0. So let's remember this small signal model now onwards to do the analysis. And one more thing, when we are doing the AC analysis, only this part is important to me, or maybe this part, because this is ground. Now it's as good as one pseudo differential amplifier. So pseudo differential means I'm going to see this thing. This point is VP, which is virtually ground. So I took it because of virtual ground. It's called virtual ground. It's AC virtual ground. We also agree that wherever there are DC quantity, we are going to call them as AC ground. So ultimately this will be the circuit, nothing else. You are going to see only this one. And if I replace this transistor with the previous circuit, how should it be look like? It has to be R pi, there has to be GM times VBE, and the output of this one, it has to be R0. This is base, this is emitter, and this is collector. This is base, this is collector, this is emitter. My emitter is connected to ground, which is virtual ground, VP point. At the input, there has to be V in plus, and at the output, there is output. I'm taking the output, this side collector. But from collector, maybe you can see one more circuit, which is RC, and connected to ground. So I have to put that circuit also here, RC to ground. This is a small signal model only for half circuit, because if you look at this circuit, I made it in a half circuit way because these grounds are not actual ground. Still this circuit is differential circuit, and I assume that these two are ground because it's AC virtual ground. Still there is a one current source which is connected to emitter junction, and I am doing this because to make sure that there is a loose control of common mode voltage, and this is just for calculation part, so that this will be half circuit. So I am going to take the only one circuit at a time, and when if I can find out the gain of this circuit or V out by V in, similarly I can find out V out by V in, and if I subtract both of them, I am going to get the differential gain of the whole circuit. So for this circuit, we learn that from our previous calculation that the gain is equal to minus GM times R out of the circuit will give me the gain, and you can find it out using simple one circuit itself. Means one circuit means one side of circuit, not both the side. Now we have already, yeah, so this circuit is already available to us, and we know that gain is equal to minus GM times R out of the circuit. So this circuit has some output resistance, and that has to be found out. How to find out any output resistance? Using Thevenin. You must be knowing that it's a Thevenin theorem, Thevenin output impedance. Let's say if I want to find out the output resistance from here, then I should connect known voltage. Okay, not I should connect some known voltage Vx. This is small signal. Some known voltage Vx, and I have to measure how much current flowing through this circuit that Vx by Ix will give me the resistance. And when I am doing this, at that time my input source or all the independent source should be shorted, or they have to be ground, or other places wherever it's connected, all has to be ground. Other independent sources has to be grounded. This is the main tagline when you are doing the resistance analysis. So if that is the case, my base voltage, so VB is becoming 0. Look at this point, V is also becoming 0. So can we call this one VBE is equal to 0? If that is the case, I can call one thing that GM times VBE is equal to 0. Resistance between 0 and 0, it's no usage of that, right? So it becomes simpler and simpler circuit. Now I am seeing how much, like if I apply Vx voltage and if I am measuring the Ix current, how much it will be? The Vx and Ix division will give me two resistance in parallel, which are RC parallel RO. If I put this one here, what I am going to see? Gain is equal to minus GM times RC parallel RO. This is going to happen, and I assume that there is a early effect voltage, or there is a early effect. Early is the name of the scientist, so E always in capital. So make sure that you are not keeping E in a small letter. Okay, just you must be knowing that, but still I just kept it for your notice. Anyway, so in this circuit you are seeing minus GM times RC, but he has not covered the early effect voltage. But in our case, we are assuming that there is a early effect voltage, and because of that, it becomes the circuit is becoming more realistic because it has also one second order effect. So now, other than that, let's say we have one. So I request all of you, please try to solve this question also in your notebook. If this is the circuit, the one which has current as a load, and there are let's call this one as, so this is VCMI, it's input voltage, this is V in minus plus, this is V in plus minus, this is VCC, and this one is, let's assume that it's I0, and I'm taking the output from here. My agenda is to find out the gain of this circuit. So I know that when I'm saying gain has to be AC, gain has to be small signal. So if I want to find out small signal AC gain, what I have to do? I have to first find out whether this point is 0 or not. Yes, it's 0, right? So Vp is 0 in the presence of V in plus and V in minus in 180-degree phase shift. This is good. I understand that it's 0. So in that case, I can make the half circuit. I will only consider the circuit which is left side or maybe right side. So for that, you can draw this one. Note that this one will go to 0. So this is the circuit at the end we are going to have when there is a current as a load. Here one more thing I want to say, what is ideal current? What is ideal current? Or what should be the characteristic of ideal current? The characteristic of ideal current is so I'm talking about the current which is available in market. So if you have some current source or current source available in your, let's say, laboratory. So what you are expecting, let's say if you want to supply 2 milliampere or 1 milliampere or so much of current you want to apply, it has to be same current for, let's say, I want some current which is 1 milliampere from the box which I purchased from the market. So if that current source is giving me 1 milliampere, I'm expecting that for any value of voltage, it should not be disturbed. I'm expecting that voltage is anything, I don't care. My current should be always 1 milliampere. This is what I am expecting. So this is the ideal current. If ideal current is that one, and if I find out the slope is equal to 0, and by the way, how much is the slope? It's delta I by delta V, y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So this is going to give me basically slope equal to 0, and delta I by delta V will give me the resistance, or this is delta resistance, which is you are going to see from the ideal current source. When I am talking about the seeing the current from ideal current source, means this is your box or the current source which you purchase from the market. If you are taking the output from that knob, or maybe from the banana jack connector, you are expecting that if you are looking inside, resistance should be infinity. This has to be 1 by delta R, because the slope has to be 0. Slope can become only 0 when your resistance is infinity. This is what I am expecting. So this I0 is the same ideal current source whose output resistance offered by the whole system, the whole current system, will be infinity. Or you can say that if I am looking from here, if I replace this whole current source, the current source should give me the impedance of infinity. When it's infinity, this resistance is infinity, means it's open circuit. Right? This is what we can do when it's a current source. And if I draw the small signal model, and if I replace this base, emitter and collector, you please also draw along with me in your notebook the small signal model of this entire circuit. So it has to be look like this one: R pi, GMVB, R0 means I am talking about the early effect voltage. So this is collector, this is emitter, this is base. I am applying my input here. From collector, there is one more branch has output impedance which is infinite, and I am taking the output from here. So we agree that we want to find out the gain, then gain is equal to minus GM times R out. If I want to find out the R out, what I am supposed to do, I have to apply some known potential Vx, and I have to measure the Ix. Vx by Ix will give me the output resistance, and at that time all the independent sources goes to like short, or it's 0. It is short. It is 0, and between resistance between two ground potential, it's useless to keep that. You can remove this, you can remove this. At the end, what you are going to see, only one resistance, which is R0. So the gain will be minus GM times R0. That's it, nothing else. If it is in the presence of early effect voltage. And this is what maybe I have drawn here. So the main crux of the story is, if you are taking the half circuit approach, if there are two circuits, if you are taking V out 1 minus V out 2 divided by V in 1 minus V in 2, the whole gain will be minus Gm times R out. And my R out can be found out from the analysis which I have done. Here in this circuit, in this diagram, saying RO1 and RO2, but this RO1 and RO2 are the resistances which are equal to each other, and both are equal to one quantity called RO. That is what we have expected. Okay. So other than that, I'll tell you one simple insight of the circuit. There is one more important thing people are uh, encountered. They are finding these kind of circuits many times. If there are two resistance and this is potential called minus Vx. Yeah, so it's delta V and this is minus delta V, right? And if R1 and R2 are equal, if R1 equal to R2 equal to R, then this potential, let's call this potential as some potential called V theta. So this potential, because of equal resistance, there will be equal drop, equal current. This is plus Vx, this is minus Vx. So at the end, it's also like virtual ground. This is also virtual ground. Remember that. Okay. So if you understand this phenomena, I'm putting one more on top of this one. The question is this one. So you have to find out the gain. So maybe we'll take a small break, and in break, can you try the small signal gain coming from this illustration number 6? Can we do that? Where Q1 and Q2 are equal, R1 and R2 are equal, Q3 and Q4 are equal, and there is a P point which is virtual ground point. I have drawn the half circuit at the right side. Maybe you can draw the small signal and you can find out how much is the output resistance. Yeah, so this is the circuit. I ask you to find out the answer for the gain. So I'm trying to derive how it works. So this is virtual ground point. First of all, this is VP, which is AC virtual ground. This is again ground. This is ground. So one more thing I forgot to tell you, this VB is a bias voltage which is DC. So if this is DC, this has to go to ground. Though, so the input of Q3 and Q4 transistor or the base terminal is connected to DC potential, and because of DC potential, it's ground. Naming the early effect voltage resistance is RO1, and there is another one R5 GMVB, and one more resistance RO. This one I am drawing for another transistor. So this is emitter, this is base, and this is collector. Right. So base is connected to ground. Or I'm only talking about Q3. So base is connected to ground. Emitter concentrating on Q1 side. So base is connected to Vin. This is base. This is collector. At emitter, it's virtual ground. Emitter is AC virtual ground. And where both the collectors are shorted to each other, there is one more branch resistance ground, and this potential we are going to call that one is V out. This is V out. I'm interested in finding out V out. So this is the effective small signal model of what we have drawn this side. So this is small signal model is this side. Now I know that gain is equal to minus GM times R out. If I want to find out R out, what I'm supposed to do? Add one known voltage source and I have to measure how much current is flowing through it. Vx by Ix will give me the resistance, and when I'm doing this, during that time all the independent sources should be 0. So base potential goes to 0, emitter potential goes to 0, Gm times Vb goes to 0. So these are not useful, this is not useful. I'm going to see how much from here. It's only 3 resistors are in parallel. So R out should be equal to RO1 times RO1 parallel RO2 parallel R, and the gain will be minus GM times RO1 parallel RO2 parallel R. This is the gain. You can check the answer. So if you want to know how it's happening by even the KCL KBL, that can be seen in the book. So it's also given in Behzad Razavi. If you follow that book, you will have these answers. So these are taken from there only. Okay. So I'm skipping this because we have not much time to do. So let's start with the frequency response because it's very important term, and there are lots of remedies, lots of understanding part. Okay, one guy has asked this question long back, that BJT is what, CCCS or CCVS? Because there are, if you Google search it, you'll find that some people are saying it's CCCS, some people are saying CCVS. Look, I am in favor of both. It depends that how you are looking at the model. So if you are looking at the model, this model, the old model without early effect voltage, let's put the model which is look like this one. And CCCS is the one, okay, just look at the CCCS is the one where your input impedance is 0 and output impedance is infinity. Right? This is the case. And for CCVS, your input impedance is 0 and output impedance is also 0. And remember that 1 kilo ohm, we are going to call it low, or it's as low as 0 for us. This is one assumption. Let's agree that. Okay, in mega ohm and other like higher values, we are going to call it infinity or the higher value. So if I want to find out the input impedance or the input resistance from here to here, so input resistance is, this is base, this is emitter, and this is collector. If I want to find out the input resistance, I have to apply known potential Vx and I have to measure the current, and I have to find out Vx by Ix. When I am doing this, during that time output terminal should be open. This is what Thevenin says, and we are doing the same thing. So when I am measuring, I am going to see only R pi. So at the input side, I am seeing only R pi, right? It's only one resistance, you can see. There is nothing else, right? So R pi is generally in the kilo ohm range, and we are going to call this one as low. Very good. Now I want to find out what is the output impedance of my circuit. So in that case, earlier it was like, we can, so if I want to find out output resistance. I'm applying Vx, known potential Vx. I'm going to measure Vx by Ix, and when I'm doing this, during that time my input will be shorted, right? So if that is the case, base becomes 0, emitter becomes 0, RPi has no influence, and GMVBE becomes 0. When GMVBE becomes 0, means that is open circuit. If I am looking from this to this, I am saying it's open circuit, means output impedance is infinity. So from these two information, I can say that it's voltage controlled voltage source. But this is not a complete truth. What you can do, let's draw the actual small signal model, which is GMVBE with R0 also in parallel. So input side, no doubt I am going to see only RPi, which is low. There is no problem. But if I am looking at output impedance, what I am going to see? Now I am not going to see the infinity. So this is like, this is 0, this is 0, and this one is also 0. So it's open circuit. So this is open circuit. This infinity in parallel of this. So the impedance offered by GMVBE current source in parallel of R0 is giving me the gain, is giving me the output resistance. So if this is very high, R0 is smaller, R0 is winning. R0 is also in the range of kilo ohms. We agree that 1 kilo is approximately low. If this is the case, let's look at the second thing, which is current control voltage source. So it depends how you are looking at your model. So some books saying that it's CCCS, some books following that CCVS, and in reality I am also thinking that it's CCVS. This is my belief. You can do the Google search. There are many, because this is a remedy, and there are lots of people are following lots of things. They have lots of reasoning for that. But if we are following on the basis of impedances, like, it becomes CCVS if it's a early effect voltage is also included. Other than that, I'm drawing a small signal model for MOSFET just to understand the complete thing. The RTO is something called channel length modulation resistance, and this is the basically small signal model for gate, source, and drain. So this is model for MOSFET, small signal model. If you follow those equation and if you derive this two-port network, it looks like this one using Y parameter. So if I am looking at the input side, there is no doubt if I am applying some voltage here, known voltage, and trying to find out how much is Vx by Ix, I am directly saying infinity. So it's very known concept that impedance is infinity. That's the biggest advantage of MOSFET, that there is input impedance is infinity. Excellent. So now similar thing I am doing, I am applying known voltage here and trying to find out the current Vx by Ix, so that I can find out the impedance which is looking at the output side. So in that case, you can see that GM VGS, gate and source, are also 0. So it's similar to your BJT. The output I am going to see R0, which is low, or it's in 1 kilo ohm. So MOSFET is, because of input, so voltage control voltage current source is the one whose input impedance is infinity, output impedance is 0. Similarly, voltage control voltage source is input impedance is infinity, output impedance is 0. Right? So these two things following this one. If you assume that there is R0 in parallel, it's similar to base width modulation or the early effect voltage. It's called channel length modulation in MOSFET. But that effect, if you are considering that, it becomes voltage control current source. If you don't consider that, it becomes like, if you consider it, it becomes voltage control voltage source. If you don't consider it, it becomes voltage control current source. So although it has to be remedy over here also, but all people, like majority of chunk, they are calling it MOSFET as voltage control voltage source, not voltage control current source, because they always consider this one. This happens. Okay, we were at talking about the frequency response. So till now, whatever we have studied, it was only at zero frequency or very small signal. Small signal is the one which is the frequency near DC, but not high frequency. What we have done till now, it was a low frequency model. It was not high frequency model. And what are the different things you are going to see? That is what going to be studied in next few slides. So what is frequency response? Frequency response is gain with respect to frequency. There are three diagrams I have shown. In that diagram, one is giving amplification, one is giving like more or less not amplification, but the frequency is changing, and the third one is giving attenuation. So in this frequency response, if it is AV is a gain with respect to the whole spectrum of frequency, and if this is the case, this is known as roll off. This is called cutoff frequency. Sometimes we call 3 dB cutoff frequency, because there are some assumption on that, but I'll tell you afterwards. And this point, it's called unity gain bandwidth or UGM. This is also 3 dB bandwidth, because that's the bandwidth of your system. And so this is one example I took it from Behzad Razavi's book. It's interesting, and I want you people to read it. So what is the thing he is saying? If there is a human voice contains 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. So left side is human voice. It contains men, women, both, and our BSNL phone system, which is from 400 hertz to 3.5 kilohertz. That's a band. Now, if my 20 hertz 20 kilohertz signal is going through the channel called 400 hertz to 3.5 kilohertz, whose voice is going to be altered more in phone system, man or women? You have to think about it. The answer is already available in the book. I am making it open ended because I want that you people read the book and you find out where it is available. Okay, so it's available in Behzad Razavi, or you can think about it. Look, whose voice will have like higher frequency or lower frequency? You should think that, and whose voice will be altered because of the band limitation. Just look at this. My that on system has a limitation till 3.5 kilohertz. What will happen if I speak above 3.5 kilohertz, or who can speak that? So you can think about it, or who can speak below 400 hertz, right? Because spectrum is big, and from where it's going, it's actually narrow. So what will happen of the other signal? Will they become zero? It will become altered, or what you are going to hear, right? So you think about it. There is one more good problem. I have seen that if there is a letter called E, and if I move, it's a video signal, and if I move my screen with from left to right or from right to left, I am going to see that E will be little bit blurred on the basis of how much I can see, or it depending on how much is my uh, my eye's bandwidth, my eye can see. So all these things are associated terms with the frequency response. If you know the frequency response very well, or if you understand the frequency response, then you can understand the system very well. So to complete the whole differential amplifier, the most important part is you have to understand how your transistor behaves at the high frequency. Let's before starting to anything, as I told you, like the easiest part to understand anything is you are very much expert on maybe network theory compared to BJT, because three terminal device is not so much common and we can understand it very easily. Those who are very much into the BJT every day, those who are solving this, maybe they don't need that small signal model and those things, and they can see the output directly. But those people who are learning at the beginning, the best part is you should understand what is happening at a RC level, resistance and capacitance. So this is the common circuit maybe you are going to see in everywhere. If I decompose my BJT, I am going to see R1 and C1. If I decompose my MOSFET, I am going to see R1 and C1. How I am going to see it, I tell you after 2-3 slides. But the main crux of the story is, if I have R and C, resistance and capacitance, this is passive circuit. So the impedance of this one is 1 by j omega Cs or maybe Sc, right? So in this case, when you are taking the V out by V in, you are going to see 1 by Sc by R plus 1 by Sc, which is equal to 1 by 1 plus S, where S is the Laplace operator, S equal to j omega. And if I want to plot this one, maybe you have learned it through Bode plot and other things. So there is one pole which is available at minus RC. And when I am drawing the Bode plot is the magnitude plot, which is always mod of this one, and I am interested at plus side. However, if you are interested at minus side, the same plot is available at the minus side also. So if I draw V out by V in versus frequency, what I am going to see? I am going to see 1 till the frequency, which is 1 by RC, and thereafter it goes down. This is going to happen. Maybe this plot is already, you have seen it and it's known to you, but this is also known as low pass filter, and as it's same thing can be seen on the side if you want, but I am not interested in this side. I am interested only at positive side. Okay, so this is the case, and this circuit is getting limited or having the problem with the input and output because there is a capacitor. If there is no capacitor, there is no problem. I can have for infinite frequency V out equal to V in. But as we have capacitor is the one which is allowing DC, but sorry, it's blocking DC, but it's allowing high frequency, right? So what is happening here, maybe if you want to go through intuitive side, at low frequency means if I am at the low frequency, what is happening? So it's 1 by j omega c, that's the impedance, and at omega equal to 0, the impedance is infinity, and at infinity the impedance is 0. So at infinity I am going to see that V in will be transferred over here. So it's V in equal to V out, but at high frequency this is shorted and V out has a direct path to ground, so it will go to 0. So you can do it this way also, and when this frequency becomes 1 by RC, thereafter there is a roll off and it goes to, it tries to go to 0. with the slope of minus 20 dB per decade. This is what we have learned through maybe from Bode plot. Okay, so this is important thing to learn. But there is one more thing, like I can have 3 RC circuits, all have connected through some amplifier called A1 and A2, whose gains are A1 and A2. If I am doing this, the first part, which is going to give me 1 by 1 plus RCS, that's the transfer function we found out for the 1 RC system. This is the for 1 RC system. If I am having 1 RC system here with multiply by A1, at this output of this one, I am going to see A1 by 1 plus RS Cin times S. And at the output of this one, I am going to see A1 times A2 divided by 1 plus RC 1 plus RS times Cin times S multiply by 1 by 1 plus R1 times Cn times S. Similarly, you can write down this one also. So all three will be multiplied. This kind of thing it's called cascading. So you are cascading 2, 3, you can add as many you want. You can do that. It's not a problem, right? Now, there's one more thing. I understand that if my system looks like this one, it's easier for me because I understand that it's 1 by 1 plus RCS and it's a low pass filter. I can see that it's very easy. But if there is a capacitor which is connected from X to V out, X is the input, V out is the V out, then it's a new thing and I don't like it. Look, I don't understand first of all what is going on here. So if I can do something like this, if there is an amplifier with the gain of minus A, there is a resistance and there is an input V in. So instead of this, if this is CF, this is X potential and this is V out. Instead of doing this, if I can do this, so if I can decompose this capacitor, two sides, instead of one, I'll be happy. My life will be easier, right? Because it's easy to analyze. Maybe there may be some resistance, there may be some same circuit will be there, because that's easy for me, right? And it's easy for you also because RC, you know that it's a low pass filter and it creates one pole at minus 1 by RC, that you know already, right? So that Bode plot is the frequency response and it's composed of magnitude and the phase plot. X-axis will be radian per second or in hertz, and x-axis is in log scale, and the magnitude response is measured in dB. dB is 20 log V out by V in, and the phase response is measured in dB. And this is used to determine the phase stability. What do you mean by stability? Means I mean to say that your phase margin should be greater than 35 degree, or even in a better way. Look, maybe all the people have taught you that your phase margin should be good, or maybe 60 degree. Look, this is the desirable 60 degree, 90 degree, 70 degree. It's good. This is what we want. But what do you mean by these degrees and all? This means that stability determines by the oscillations. If your system is in feedback and still it's giving oscillations, means it's unstable. If it is not giving oscillations, means it's stable. And these oscillations are measured in terms of, there is a damping factor called zeta, and that zeta, so if you are measuring that in a degree or in phase, that is also defined here in terms of some degree. So if your phase margin is becoming better and better, your damping should be removed, or maybe there has to be minimum damping. So if this is input, mean I'm expecting the output as this one, but I got this one. This system is unstable. Look, I show or it's oscillatory, and I can see that it's the oscillations are growing. So it's a positive feedback, by the way. Oscillations are growing. There may be another thing. Instead of this, if you see something like this one, oscillations are becoming gradually decreasing, but there are, there are lots of damping going up and down. You are going to see like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are lots of ringing. I don't like this ringing. This measuring ringing in terms of phase margin is important term. So maybe if you design something, you will find that what control engineer, they expect that you should design a system which look like this one maybe, or maybe this one. More desirable is there is no ring. So when there is a no ring, the phase margin is approximately 60 degree. This is I am telling you from the experience. You can do like, so as ringing is increasing, your phase margin is also decreasing. As ringing is increasing, the phase margin becomes poor and poor, or it goes to down or below 35. So 35 we want to achieve, and that's how, using the tool called, we want to find out how my system will behave, or my system is stable or not, that we are going to declare. But so the next part I am just removing, because you must be knowing this Bode plot. The real thing which I told, that I want to decompose my capacitor, or maybe anything which is connected here. If it is decomposed in pi model or maybe tree model, it's good. Okay, so I'm right now I'm making the pi model, but that is more advantageous to us because I can analyze it very easily. So there is one theorem called Miller. This gentleman has found out the theorem, or one approximation. Through that you can actually decompose the impedance the way we want. And what we want is, if there is a gain from here to here, let's make it a, if this gain is in positive, I took it positively, so I'm taking positive, and there is an impedance called Z, this side, right? This is Vx, this is Vy. I want to make this one as, so basically the current flowing through this one is equal to Vx minus Vy by Z. Now if I want to make this one, which has decomposition of your impedance Z1 and Z2, Vx this side, Vy this side, what I can comment about the current flowing through this one. So the current flowing through this one, if it is I1, which is Vx by Z1, and the current flowing through this one is Vy by Z2, right? And I assume that there is one assumption that both the currents are equal. So I is equal to I1 and I is equal to I2. I'm not doing anything wrong with the current, right? So I means the Miller. He has told that both the current be equal. So if that is the case, and if I derive Vx minus Vy by Z is equal to Vx by Z1, and if I find out Z1 is equal to Z times Vx by Vx minus Vy, which is equal to, if I divide it with Vx, it becomes 1 by 1 minus Vy by Vx, and we know that Vy by Vx is a gain, let's call it V, is equal to voltage gain. If I replace this one, I am going to see this. So maybe you can put it somewhere that Z1 becomes 1 by, sorry, Z by 1 minus AV. This is one thing. Similarly, for this one, for this guy, he is also following same thing. I2 is equal to I. If I equate with this equation, what I'm going to see, Z2 is equal to Z divided by Z dy divided by Vx minus Vy, and if I divide it by Vy, I'm going to see Z divided by Vx by Vy minus 1. Sorry, the current, okay, I made a mistake. For this side, the current has to be equated with Vy minus Vx because it's with respect to Vy. So it has to go in a reverse direction. So it has to be Vy minus Vx. This is the one thing. Yeah, that's why I got a wrong answer. Anyway, so here, if it is divided by Vy, it's 1 minus Vx by Vy. But we know that Vy by Vx is Av, so this becomes Z by 1 minus Av inverse. Excellent. So we learn that Z2 becomes Z by 1 minus Av inverse. Let's remember that Miller theorem and keep this Z1 and Z2 in your mind, that one is divided by Z divided by 1 minus Av and one is Z divided by 1 minus Av. Z1 is this side, Z1 is this side, Z2 is this side. But this theorem only works when there is a gain. Just look at that. If there is a gain, you can decompose your impedance in two parts, which is Z1 and Z2. And what we wanted to do is, I want to find out the pole associated with the node. When I am saying the pole association means it's a pole frequency. Pole frequency is the one which contributes minus 20 dB per decade of slope. And if it is giving you minus 20 dB per decade, so it's a bottleneck. Means for simple RC circuit, your gain is 1 till the frequency called 1 by RC, and after that there is a roll off with the 20 dB per decade, and it's getting some voltage, and it's getting cut with the x-axis. So this is going to happen. So this is creating a problem, or you can say capacitor is creating a problem. 1 by RC is giving you the point after which your gain is not equal to 1, and it's getting attenuated, which is not desirable, first of all, right? So pole frequency is the one which limits your bandwidth, and your gain will not be the one which you want. And the pole frequency is the reciprocal quantity of a capacitor and the equivalent resistance seen across the capacitor. So this is going to happen. Okay, so now let's go to the real circuit. Slowly we'll build up, and we'll go to the differential amplifier, back to the real thing again. So if this is Miller capacitor, then CF this side, and there's a gain of minus A0. So if it is normal common emitter amplifier, your gain will be minus GM times RC. And there is a capacitor is connected in between V in and V out, and you want to decompose this CF. If you want to decompose this CF, what you are going to see, one side it's CF 1 plus A0. So if you are following this equation, ZF by 1 minus AV, ZF by 1 minus AV inverse, what you are going to see, one side it will be CF 1 plus A0, another side you are going to see CF 1 plus 1 by A0. So if that is the case, we should learn one more thing. Sometimes in future maybe you need to do approximation, and you will find that your A0 is infinity, or it's very large value. So if it is A0 is very large, then so you have to make the approximation sometimes, that which one is bigger and which one is smaller. So that you can do with respect to keeping this infinity here and keeping infinity here. So you can find out the capacitance is big or small, or whether you should consider that or not. Okay, so now go to the BJT, where there is a high frequency model of BJT. What I'm saying is, we agree that parasitics will be there. You don't want, but they are there. I'm talking about capacitor because capacitor is getting active at high frequency, or maybe whenever there is frequency, it allows AC. It blocks DC means, or it blocks small value of AC frequency because it depends on the capacitor value also. So, and it's blocked by this equation 1 by j omega c, right? And there will be parasitic or capacitor. We agree that whenever there are two plates, whenever there are two plates, and whenever there is a difference in potential at two plates, difference in potential, and there are both sides its frequency, then there will be coupling of two plates by a capacitor. So if you have BJT, which looks like this one, N plus E and N, look at this carefully. I am seeing there are plates are available from this side and this side. Look, and here I am applying some voltage, base voltage. Here I am applying some emitter voltage. I am applying some collector voltage. So I am seeing three plates, 1, 2 and 3, all will have a different uh, potential, and I am saying that I am applying some AC. If I am doing this, this is at high frequency, or maybe the frequency which is creating the capacitor. So I am saying first parasitic here, another parasitic here. So base to emitter is called junction capacitor. These blue colored are parasitics, parasitic capacitance, and they are activated because of you are at high frequency and there are different plates I am seeing, and between base and collector I am seeing one more capacitance which is called C mu. So if you remember, our model was like this one. We agree this is base, this is collector, and this is R0, this is R pi. But on top of this thing, there are capacitors are also playing a role. So I would say that between base and collector, there is one parasitic capacitor which is called C mu, and base to emitter there is one more capacitance which is called junction capacitance C. And if you want to do the analysis the way you were doing earlier, you have to decompose C mu this side and this side, with considering that there is a small signal gain of minus gm times R0 for our case. For this case, one BJT will give you gain of minus gm times R0. Okay, so this was the thing, and this is giving you the high frequency model of BJT, and this will be useful to find out the high frequency things. Yeah, this may be sufficient enough maybe, and other things are not possible to cover, but yeah, this will be uh, give you insight how to proceed with the high frequency model, and how to find out the how to find out the poles. So one more thing I am going to tell you, because it's very important and it's going to be very useful. So in any circuit, if you are seeing capacitors, so when I'm saying capacitors, it's effective capacitors, not like there is one capacitor here, one capacitor here, they are in parallel. So if they are in parallel, so still I will call it one capacitor, and it's a, let's say this is C1 and C2, both are in parallel, so it's C1 plus C2, right? So I want that kind of effective capacitor. As many number of effective capacitors you are seeing, that many number of poles are available in your system. So for this case, when we are decomposing, I'm going to decompose this capacitor here. Just look at this. This is decomposed here, and one more decomposed here. When I decompose it and I name it as C1 and C2, you know the value of C1 and C2. It's in terms of GM, and like it's in terms of this equation. It's in terms of these equations. You have to put the Z equal to -1 by G omega C, and you can get what you want to have it. Okay, so effective capacitance R, this is one capacitance, let's call this one as Cx, and this is also one more capacitance, let's call it Cy. So by looking at this model, you should be able to now tell that there are two effective capacitance, means there will be two effective poles. So it's a two-pole system. There is not only one pole, there are two poles, or there are not three poles, it's two poles. So these things can be used, and it can be like further can be useful to find out how many poles are there and how much bottlenecks are available in your system to limit the speed. I would like to invite if you have any question, because the gain on, okay, now there are many questions I am seeing. Okay, is it possible to decompose inductor by Miller theorem? If yes, then what will be the relation? Of course, you can decompose. So GHRC, Kamlesh has asked one question. So importance of Miller theorem, we know that, right? In differential amplifier, we want to decompose it. That's why we are using it, and it will become easier to understand. This is one part. Yes, you can decompose anything, any impedance. Just you have to follow this equation. You have to replace Z with appropriate impedance. This is one thing. Okay. Then the gain of differential amplifier will be affected with considering parasitic capacitor. Yes, it's going to be affected for sure. It's, if you remember, when you have R and C, I'm plotting gain versus frequency. My gain versus frequency looks like this one. So you can see that because of this capacitor, my gain actually getting decreased, or you can say that it creates a pole. This pole creation limits the bandwidth or limits the speed.
Hello.
It's about to die.
So good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sir, is 741 op amp, is it a pseudo differential or a fully differential op amp amplifier?
Fully differential. Actually, it's you can call it differential, because there are two inputs, and if you look at the internals of 741, you will find out that there is a IE current which is tied to the emitter, both the emitters.
Okay, sir.
Maybe you can see the internal structure, you will understand in a better way.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
In chat, somebody has wrote something. Why the parasitics are unwanted in the analysis? Look, they are not unwanted in the analysis. They have been created because of, we never, whenever we want the system which gives me a full gain for all the frequency. This is what the desired thing, right? Even at terahertz, even at hundreds of terahertz, I want that gain should not be decreasing. But because of extra parasitic capacitor which are created because of two plates, because of difference in voltages, and because of that it limits my speed, and that's why I call it unwanted. Otherwise they are not unwanted. They actually, I don't want them in my system at all. One capacitor creates one pole and it limits the bandwidth. By small signal gain, DC source is equal to AC. Yeah, so in small signal gain, what we are doing, the small signal, if you remember correctly, we made two-port network. We found out del IB by del Vc or del Ib by del Vb. You can replace this with delta. This delta, when it's a delta, means there is a small change. I'm talking about small change, and that small change is small enough so that it's not getting saturated at the output. This is what I want. It should not be saturated at the output. So if this blue color is my output, if it is getting saturated, then it's not a small signal. If I am giving the small signal, it's a small enough that the output looks like this one, right? So when I am doing this, generally I'm applying the frequency. I'm not applying something only DC. I generally apply frequency. So if I apply the frequency, AC has a frequency, and what we are doing is small signal AC. If that is the case, that is the main tagline, that what we are doing is small signal AC, and wherever I am seeing DC, DC is equal to how much? It's 0 volt AC plus, let's say I am applying 1 volt DC, so plus 1 volt DC. Right now I am doing only AC analysis, not DC. So during that particular analysis, I am going to use 0 volt AC, or I am going to call it ground. Otherwise, when I am going to do the DC analysis, I am going to consider this one, which we have considered already when we started, right? So the biasing of the circuit and those things are coming under this analysis. So we are treating both the things separately. First AC and then DC. This is what we have done, and that's how the DC is equal to, the question was why small signal AC gain DC source. Yeah, so that's how DC source is equal to AC ground. Okay, is there any system where we do not require to suppress the even or odd harmonic? Look, it depends on application, that how much do you need. Sometimes like if you, so it's all related with the SNR. If SNR is the thing, if you need very poor SNR, means 0 dB. 0 dB is the one when signal and noise both are equal. This is not a single system where we need this, but if you want to make poor electronics, you can do that. There is no device where we need 0 dB of SNR. Okay, so thank you very much. I'm signing off for today. Thank you.